This video series has looked at the origin of the shopping city at Runcorn. It is a story of ambition, much excitement, and groundbreaking in terms of engineering and planning. When reality weighed in though, changes in the world and the economy had significantly changed things for the centre and its commercial success. While some of it is up for debate as to who or what can be blamed, it's safe to say that some factors could have been handled better or avoided, whilst others were beyond anybody's foresight and control. At the turn of the millennium, retail changed forever when sites like Amazon, eBay, and the own websites of every high street retailer became a fierce competitor to its brick and mortar stores. At the very least, this meant less physical locations and prioritization on high traffic areas for many of the higher end stores and department stores. Where stores may have thrived in Liverpool and Chester, but smaller towns like Runcorn no longer paid off. Littlewoods is one of the retailers at the centre of Halton Lee at the time, which was lost forever, likely with this playing a part of the role in the firm's restructuring and subsequent outright failure. In the late 2000s, the credit crunch and global recession and collapse of many of the banks and businesses was another devastating period for retail and the economy. Woolworths was an opening day tenant of Shopping City that was lost upon the chain's failure in 2009 and vanished from Halton Lee. The economy was relatively strong throughout the 2010s, and so was management during this period, and new names were attracted to the centre for nearly every loss. Poundworld, The Range, Pep & Co, British Heart Foundation, although losses in the form of Tesco and some of the newcomers had happened during the same time. There was Brexit uncertainty, although this didn't really have a major impact on the small town retail staples at the centre. Even in the late 2010s, we were seeing severe trouble ahead for retailers like House of Fraser, Debenhams, Evans Cycles, and Toys R Us, who either had major restructuring, buyouts, refinancing, or faced total collapse. Some of these businesses just couldn't compete with e-commerce. The next big economy event is something nobody really predicted, nor had many of today's population lived through themselves: the COVID-19 pandemic, leaving the internet as the only way to shop for goods beyond the essentials, but gone were the visits to cafes, restaurants, or going out to spend time with people in public for social and fun purposes. Not just at Shopping City, but around the world, and certainly in UK society, when things eventually did open up, things were different. Habits were changed. Mask mandates and further lockdowns on and off severely impacted retail and the high street at large. Not only did many businesses never reopen, but those that did had revised strategies over what they considered to be no longer worth operating. The UK economy has changed since the pandemic and was already slowly changing from the rise of services like Amazon Prime. In 2011, you were already using Amazon and saving money, but by 2021, you likely subscribed to Amazon Prime and expected most things next day, as well as at a better price than you could find at your local shopping centre. So how does this impact Shopping City? Nothing I've discussed so far only happened at Shopping City or in Runcorn, but it's completely relevant, as in recent years, and what I predict will be the years to come, what happens at Shopping City will reflect what's happening in every other town centre in the UK. In the 90s, Shopping City was losing its big city retailers that really didn't have much of a chance of surviving in a small town surrounded by residential neighbourhoods. The local shopping population only really needed everyday goods and were willing to make a day out of travelling further for big purchases or experiences. The only real stores that can survive reflect those of any other small town in the UK, and that is why much of the large vacant spaces in the shopping city have remained empty for now more than half its existence, and they probably always will. And with the stores that do have a commercial purpose here, such as B&M Bargains and Home Bargains, both once tenants of Shopping City, have moved out into the Trident retail park. It's unclear why this was, whether it was deemed to be more convenient for shoppers to access lower rents with more practical use of floor space for loading, or a combination of all of the above. But in any case, it leaves a vacant space on the shopping level of Shopping City and gives locals one less reason to have to face the dreadful Link Building's broken escalators to access the centre. Many other towns are losing their physical banks due to the increase in online and app usage for most banking tasks. Santander closed in the shopping city in 2021, Even the surviving Halifax Bank just across the corridor reflects the changing trends from all the other high street banks of closing earlier at 3 p.m. The case for in person banking is getting smaller and smaller nationwide, which affects the shopping city too. The future is uncertain for high street retail at large. About the only businesses which are safe appear to be value destinations like Poundland, the important recycling nature of the charity shop, pharmacies, and everyday utilities and goods sold at shops like Savers or your local convenience store. Things change over decades. The designers of the shopping city did their best to predict changes, and they knew changes would happen that they wouldn't be able to anticipate. They thought that a reconfigurable shopping level was the solution, and that this would be much more economical and convenient to do in one big air conditioned box with a shopping floor that any other town centre, major roadworks, reconstruction, and demolition would otherwise require. But they couldn't have predicted the arguably better alternatives we have in the 21st century: Amazon Prime, banking apps, Netflix for watching your movies, at home DVD workouts, or modern services like Peloton or Apple Fitness, which might replace your need to go to a gym. It's not even 1960s inability to predict this, but even the more modern 1990s development of the Cineworld Cinema adjoining Shopping City, something which survived and worked for a long time. This closed just last year in 2023, and cinemas are known to survive in small towns. This one did in Runcorn for decades. But post-COVID pandemic, post-Netflix, and cheap, easier movie viewing online and from the comfort of your own home in glorious 4K, this has changed things. You put together enough big changes in society, the economy, and technology, and it's no surprise that so much has changed and led to the abandonment of Shopping City by many retailers, banks, shoppers, and investors. Despite some of the best efforts in the 2010s and modern visions to save it, the vision and ambitions of the original designers, as intended, will probably never become a reality again. Whilst at times the centre has fulfilled its goals and served its community and could be deemed a success, the vast empty spaces and hidden away, long defunct zones which had the promise of being lively leisure destinations are unlikely to change in the coming decades. Much of Runcorn, the housing estates built in the 60s and 70s, have already been torn down and replaced, usually by more modern yet traditional designs and techniques which resonated much better with the following generations who occupied them. Castlefields in particular, the largest and most innovative estate with its deck access flats and single pitch bungalows and incredibly modular rows of two-storey housing, is nearly unrecognisable today since its major redevelopment in the early 2000s. Not only was the capacity of the new Castlefields well below the original estate of the 60s, but this was more appropriate as we now know that the ultimate population goal for Runcorn of 100,000 never materialised. In 2021, the population was just short of 62,000 people. As we discussed in previous segments, part of the justification of why Shopping City was so huge by 60 standards was because of the imminent boom in construction of the motorways in England, which was thought to be a guaranteed stream of farther afield people to come and shop at the centre. The highways opened and more families than ever owned a private car. Most of them owned two cars by the 90s, but the footfall never came. Just because people could easily travel didn't mean they were going to, and when they did, the much richer, more established and superior lustre of the big cities of Liverpool, Manchester, Chester, and farther along the motorways is where people decided to go, not to the centre of a small, unassuming town nestled between a trio of world-class cities. Ironically, the fantastic figure-of-eight road network also efficiently ensured that those who did need to commute through Runcorn did so and completely bypassed the shopping city at the centre, doing the local population justice in avoiding heavy traffic flows, making sure that the casual opportunities to stop, shop and explore the town was unlikely unless intended. So what does the future hold? In short, who knows? Every decade of our lives have changed with new technology. Smartphones changed the world. 3D TVs or cinema viewings didn't. Right now, we're seeing a huge push towards electric cars, and nobody really knows if that'll be a smartphone level change or another 3D TV situation where, for a while, we got incredibly excited and impressed for the future, only to totally forget that they were a thing a decade or two later. There are lots of strong arguments for either outcome. Nobody really knows yet for sure. Apple has just launched its vision for spatial computing and virtual reality headsets, and AI is beginning to seep into our lives as well. The same could be said. Will it catch on or not? And if these things do, what will that change about our lives and our routines, including shopping, including our visits to shopping centres, our local town centres, and more? The internet, smartphones, and Amazon Prime, these things changed how we live day to day, and they affected shopping city and town centres across the country. I don't think there will be a major use for such vast floor space at the shopping city anytime soon. As much as I would love to see it full, busy, and be the pillar of the community it was always hoped to be. And this is not a criticism or finger pointing at management or the ownership either. They've done a phenomenal job in the last decade in pulling what was Fordgate's awful Halton Lee failure into the 21st century, bringing so much positivity, investment, and pride in Runcorn again. Nothing they have done has led to the current challenges or losses at the centre. Nothing has happened under their watch that isn't happening in your local town centre as well. My final thought on the shopping city, until the next time I get a chance to see it, is that it will continue to exist for many decades to come, and it will continue to thrive where it can, how it can, as a local shopping destination. That means no hope for an Apple store, no hope for a John Lewis, or huge ice rink or fader, nor a Nando's or a food court filled with the usual suspects. Probably not even a Primark, as much as I know the town would love that. It will simply continue to be the central area for the community where people come to get groceries at the nearby supermarkets, fast food, or stock up on the essentials at Savers, pick up a prescription at Boots, or open their child's first saving account at one of the remaining banks. The recent loss of East Lane House, a long vacated former government office which was part of the original shopping city complex, finally happened. There are plans for another nearby slightly newer office complex behind that to be converted into apartments. And around the area, the opening of Lidl, Burger King and Papa John's shows that Runcorn, as a town, still commands new outlets and destinations, ones that are suitable for a town of its size, and these will need somewhere to go. Yes, the loss of the cinema and the individual shops is always a loss, but this isn't unique to the shopping city. It's happening elsewhere too. We'll see further losses and we'll see future openings. I think the turbulent years are over. I think the criticisms that the owners or the management simply don't care, or that the shopping city is underinvested in, have been false for many, many years. When I would hang around Halton Lee in the 2010s, those views very much were true, and the disrespect from the local community was somewhat deserved. But for the last decade, the owners, the management, and the wonderful staff of the shopping city do care. They do invest time and money into things that enrich the community and provide opportunities to locals, such as the box. I've even heard that an NHS-run community initiative has moved in, which is a fantastic use of that space and somewhere easily accessible to all groups of local people. I am excited to see where the next 50 years of Shopping City go. In just under 20 years since I first stepped foot into Halton Lee, so much has changed, let alone those first 30 years of massive changes. We'll see what the next chapters hold. Next time you visit, I hope the building makes a little more sense to you. I hope you find joy in the understanding of why it is so unique and unusual, an appreciation for what was once a space-age 60s dream of the future, the signs left over from the dull, dingy Halton Lee days, and some of the recent changes such as the blocking off of the corridor with the toilets, making room for a potential large shop to move in the future. Maybe it'll capture your imagination now, as it did to me. Please comment your thoughts, feedback, questions and opinions on this video, the series and the shopping city in Runcorn. No matter how small your memory, thought or detail, it's interesting to me and there will be others online that share your experience and want to know more. Thanks for watching the series.